Hello and welcome to Higher Thinking on Higher Ed. I am Sharlyn Carrington, Communications Steward and Strategist. So excited once again to continue diving into the biggest trends, common challenges, and the most effective solutions encountered by communications and marketing leaders in higher ed. And today I am honored to talk to John Penrose, Vice President of Enrollment and Marketing at Kentucky Christian University. John leads strategic growth initiatives across admissions and branding, and with over 20 years of experience in higher ed, and also as the founder of Velocity 290 Digital Solutions, John brings both institutional insight and entrepreneurial perspective to this conversation. Once again, big thank you, John, for being here with us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me. I'm
Of
looking forward to
course.
it.
I'm looking forward to this too. I'm so happy you had the time to do it today. So we'll just start really easy. I've just said a little bit about what it is that you do, but I would love to just dive in a little bit to your journey and your experience. I know you have a really unique blend of academic and missions focused and leadership experience. Can you tell us a little bit about, your role as VP for marketing and communications now and generally, how it connects to the broader mission of the institution?
Yeah, excellent. No, I have a deep connection to the mission of the university. Honestly, it's the mission of KCU that brought me here. I was at Thomas More University before this and really enjoyed my role there. And the president of this school came and spoke at my church, and my church is connected to this university. I live about an hour away from here. And I don't know, 2 months later, I'm working here. It was, and it was strictly because of what we do here. It's a unique situation of a Christian university that offers many of the same things that a larger state school or someplace like that, but in a very personalized Christian environment, and I super love that. And we're really focused on producing servant leaders for people in both careers and ministry, or doctors or lawyers, anywhere they find work outside after they graduate here. So I love it. It really fits with what I do and how I do it.
Now, I do this often, and I apologize in advance. You say something that's really interesting, and it's a question that completely I didn't think about before. But as you're talking about, your connection to your own personal values and your personal mission, and of course, the connection to the mission that the institution tries to bring to the world, I wonder if, you can speak a little bit on, how the values-based mission actually drives, some of the marketing efforts that you do in the university.
And that's a great question. And it completely drives we the marketing. We are desperately working to get away from the giant net philosophy and really focus on mission fit students, mission critical procedures, and market to those groups on a number of platforms. So, students that are looking for a Christ centered education need to be at the top of our list. And from years past, when you would do broader outreach and broader perspectives in the folks you market to, we don't really do that anymore. We are
Right.
looking to target individuals, and our messaging has to be authentic to what we do and connects with those students, or it's ineffective.
I think that's a really interesting response because I think, coming from a communications and marketing lens myself, I think about really trying to find a way to identify who those leads are, who those people are. I wonder how you do that. Is it they come to you first, or how are you kind of finding them?
Well, that's the great mystery of all mysteries in college admissions. Finding the mission fit kids that have grit.
Yeah.
Um, but we have a number of things that we do. We have about 200 covenant churches. Obviously, kids from those churches are likely good mission fits. We work with camp teams at Christian camps in the summertime. We go to conferences, and what we do is we build profiles of,
Right.
of those type of students, where they come from, and then we look at our alumni and we build a profile of the alumni that are most connected to the university. And then we try to find that in this generation, which isn't always easy, but I don't know when
Yeah.
it's a difficult task. But I think if we're in the right spots where they're consuming media, where they're
Right.
consuming, um, as Bart Kaler would say, they're watering holes, um, then we have a good chance of reaching those students. But if we're, you know, if we're running an ad in the newspaper, we're probably not reaching those students. Not there's not a reason to run an ad in the newspaper. I don't have a reason to run an ad in the
Right.
newspaper, but, I have to be where they are.
Exactly. So I love that you said that because I mean, I feel that that leads perfectly into my next question. When you said about, sometimes it's hard to identify them and to find out where it is that they are and connecting with them on the platforms that you're using. And I think about just in general, kind of the sector shifts, the shifts that we're seeing across higher ed, but across, like marketing communications in general and the difficulty in reaching people. I wonder, in general, what changes you're seeing across higher ed, particularly for, smaller or faith-based institutions, for example, and how are those shifts kind of shaping your communications and marketing strategy or priorities right now?
Yeah, obviously the demographic cliff for us is important and straight ahead. The good news is Kentucky is a few years behind that demographic cliff. So this should be our biggest high school graduation this year and next for several years, and then it'll slightly decline afterwards. So that's a shift. I see that some of the larger institutions um, have tried to pull students from our niche
Right.
into their recruiting processes where maybe they weren't going after those students as intensely, but mostly I've seen it used to be in marketing higher ed the the big ate the small,
Right.
right? The big
Right.
ate the small, and the small had to fight all they could. And I've always been at smaller schools, but now it's the fast eats the slow,
Right.
right? And it used to be all these, you'd have all these philosophies about lead follow up and kind of, and I started in for profit, so we're pretty aggressive, and so we have marketing, and then we get leads, and then prospective students, we really go aggressively and quickly, and just across our entire process, there's a greater need for speed and there's a greater need for student experience. And if you can marry those two things appropriately, then you will be successful. But if you don't react, nobody, and I have this conversation with folks all the time. When you buy something on Amazon and you pay for it, or you fill the form out, if something doesn't pop up immediately, you lose your mind, right? You're like,
Of
what is
course.
wrong
Right.
with this thing?
Why is this taking
Why?
so long?
Yeah, why? And so the same experience is you drive somebody to your website, you convert them, and you don't respond to them immediately. More marketing on top of that, essentially.
Right.
They think something's wrong in the process, especially this generation and the current group of students we're dealing with now. They really are looking for curated choices,
Right. Of
unlike
course.
a gigantic portfolio. So it's important on our end for us to kind of know where we're marketing, know what the students are looking for, and then give them a few choices that are meaningful to them instead of 8,000 choices where some previous generations kind of they wanted multiple choice, they wanted 1,000 things to
Right.
choose from. So those are some of the major shifts, both demographically and process wise, that we're seeing. And then, of course, obviously, the students move around. We set up a Snapchat um, business profile like a year ago, and I was working on that myself because we're small. and I just felt so old. I'm doing that Snapchat, and I'm trying to figure out how this all works. And I'm just looking at that. I have 12-year-old kids, so they're not. I'm holding off the social media as long as I can.
As
But
long
I'm
as you
like,
can.
man,
Yep.
if my 16-year-old niece was here, I'd be dominating this. So it's like you have to adapt, and you have to find the folks where they are. So yeah, so I've learned to use Snapchat.
That's good. I mean, that's what you need to do. Exactly that. You need to figure out where it is that they are. I want to pick up. There were a few different things you said that I've actually written down here because I don't want to forget them. And one of the things you talk about is curating that kind of personalized experience. What does that look like for your team? What is that from before they actually become a student, or you're just talking about once they're a student and you're trying to retain them and make
No,
sure
no,
that they.
no. That's before they become a student. That is using the information we have in their journey, especially on our website and other places, to understand. Um, so once again, we had, for example, ICOM is a large conference on missions that we
Right.
had here last year, and there was like 40,000 people. We did some geo targeting and captured some data from that, and we started sending ads out about our certificate programs. And and so what that looks like is using a specialized QR code, or using a specialized to direct people to the choices we think they would be most interested in
Right.
based on where they came from.
Right. Right.
And so instead of sending them to uh, a landing page of all the online programs, right? We're sending them specifically to a landing page on a certificate in church ministry. Uh,
Yes.
or if it was we did a big nursing event in Eastern Kentucky a couple months ago. Those we actually have a curated landing page
Hmm.
that those particular leads will be directed towards. That will give them options in undergraduate nursing, because we know they're all high school kids.
Right. Right.
So that takes a little more um, effort on both ends, the marketing and the enrollment side. But honestly, in this job, it's the same job. If you can't do both, you're in trouble. I mean,
Right.
that's how I got into the whole marketing side. I was at a conference for enrollment leaders in Nashville quite a long time ago, and they asked us all. They said, "Do you? How many of you guys text your students to recruit them?" I was the only guy that raised my hand,
Oh, wow.
and I didn't want to say I came from the evil for-profits, and they told us to text the kid. I mean, that's where I kind of learned about texting. I mean, that's not. I'm just joking about the evil part. I worked for a couple of really good for-profit schools, but um, so I was the only guy that raised my hand. And the next year, I don't remember where the conference was. It was someplace else. It was, and they did the same thing. They said, "How many people?"
And
Um,
everyone raised their hand.
everybody raised
Oh,
their
for
hand.
sure.
And
Yeah.
then the very next question they said was, "How many of you guys are using targeted digital ads to attract your students?" Two people raised their hands,
Oh my gosh. Right.
and it wasn't me. I wasn't one of the people that raised my hands.
Right.
And then I thought, uh-oh, I'm going to be all those people from last year that I was whooping on for a couple of years, right? Because they didn't text their students.
Right.
And I felt at that exact second, I'm like, I'm behind. And I have to do whatever I need to do to learn how to do this,
Right.
right? And I worked at a small school with no money. So, I mean, if it was to be, it's up to me, right? So I'm like, I'm behind right now. I realized. Now, the good thing, I think one of them was um, Vanderbilt, I think, was one of the schools. So I really wasn't competing with Vanderbilt, but I knew at that moment I had to learn how to do the marketing side and marry the two of them to be successful. So that's when I started and started in digital marketing and trying to learn how to be a digital marketer. And so,
Well, Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on so many things there that I think are like so critical. Just this idea that technology is changing so quickly. The tools that we have are changing and advancing so quickly. The ways to reach your audience, to reach students, are changing and advancing so quickly, and it's really easy to almost miss the boat on certain things. But you also touched on just this idea that when you're in a smaller school and you have a smaller team, there are different challenges. There are different challenges that present themselves. And I wonder, thinking about some of the successes that you have, and then some of the things that maybe are still kind of challenging for you. What's clicking right now for you in your work? What's working really well? Maybe something that is exceeding your expectations. And then on the flip side, what's been especially frustrating or difficult to move forward?
Um, Integration of AI, I think we're ahead of the curve. I think we're ahead of the curve as far as seeing, and it's intentional planning and it's intentional work on our part, as seeing AI as a a tool in our toolbox that we bring alongside of what we do,
Right.
not trying to figure out a way to use AI to do what we do so we don't have to do
To
it.
do it, right.
Right? It has to be. It's like giving everybody this assistant that might get the be super fast and super smart, and then some of the integrations in our CRM and some other places where we actually have like options, like you can type a response and then it'll say, "Hey, maybe you ought to send it this way."
Right.
Knowing as enrollment professionals to say, and sometimes the way the AI sets it up, it's terrible,
Right,
and
of
you
course.
wouldn't send that to a student. And then sometimes you're like, whoa, that's pretty good. And a perfect example, I was working on, I'm working on a TV ad, right? A streaming TV ad, digital ad.
Hmm.
And I was struggling with the last part of the sentence. And I had like 4 or 5 ideas, and I put them together and I used AI to help me. Like I listed my ideas and I'm like, help analyze these and give me suggestions.
Right.
And I came up with something I thought was really good. Uh, it was, it was, it was focused on nursing. So it was like a ready to care statement. But if I'd have just said, AI, give me the statement, and I had to put like my 5 ideas in
Yeah, you
and
have to
then
put your,
synthesize that, it would have been it's just be junk.
it
So
wouldn't
you
have been
have to kind of understand that technology and that emerging technology and not be afraid to use it. But
absolutely.
you have to understand that it is just part of the tool in our toolbox. And I feel like as a team and as a school, like I feel like we've been pretty progressive on the academic side, and we're working hard on the marketing side to use AI, but not to do it like, and you scroll through your social media feed, you can tell the
You
AI.
can see it.
In matter of fact, it's going to be like it's eventually. I honestly think the full AI ads are going to be kind of a. Students are smart, right? They're
Yeah.
smart. They know when that picture of the guy walking
A
in
little
fall with
off.
the backpack and the
Yeah.
sun's hitting their face just the right might not be real,
Yeah.
And so I'm. I think we're really doing well in that. I think we're doing really well in our outside lead creation, our in-person marketing, shoe leather type stuff. Um, and I feel like we've done well on the digital advertising, the pay per click, the creating digital ads that are
Right.
effective for people, um, and getting those in front of prospective students. I feel like that's going pretty well for us, right? And our indicators, like our conversion rates and our all the numbers that count, look, you know, like we're doing well in there, because I could feel it all day long. But if the conversion rate's terrible and our click through rate is terrible and all the things that we measure every day aren't working, it doesn't matter what I feel, because that's olden times and this is the new time, and you have to track literally everything. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the next question I was going to ask you, but I don't want to ask you yet because I want to know if you have any challenges or
yeah,
anything
no,
that's been especially frustrating.
tons of challenges. We have um, we're still in an overall branding voice authority deficit at this school.
Okay.
This school is excellent. It is excellent. And the thing that struck me about that first meeting I had with the president, he talked about, he said, he was bragging, not bragging, but in his speech, he was talking about the top 10 nurse practitioner program in the country at KCU. I'm in the college admissions business. I'm at a good sized school.
Right.
I have a nursing program that I promote. I didn't know KCU had a top 10 program.
Right.
I didn't know these things. And of all the people sitting there in those pews that should have known that, it would have been me.
Right.
And it kind of was like a challenge, like, I gotta help fix this. I
Yeah.
honestly felt that way. I thought I gotta help fix this. This is so there's like a voice authority, a branding authority, and they did some just classic mistakes. It wasn't out of neglect. Like, for example, when I got here, the course catalog for this university was a PDF saved on our website.
Right.
It was a good course catalog. It was all in there. But you know, and I know, if Google crawls that course catalog, they just see a PDF. You
Yep.
don't get any authority from all those classes you had. So the first thing, I said is we got to build a new website.
Yeah.
This has to change. We need authority in these content areas. And so no, that's still a struggle. We did a lot of painting, and I've been here 2.5 years. In the first 2 years I rolled out a lot of paint on fresh woods. It's
Right.
just being sucked in, and we're starting to see in our own backyard, which is where I wanted to own first, like applications from local high schools and stuff, which is the real test for us. Those have all increased, so I know
That's
we're
great.
being effective. But yeah, that's still a struggle. And our biology program, we have kids getting accepted into med school, and we have all these great things happening in our pre-professional programs. And it's like we send press release after press release after press release, and part of it, because it's not like the old days,
Right.
right? The sources you used to send that information to, they reached a broad audience, aren't as effective, and so you have to send it to multiple
Yes.
places that have like more narrow reaches. And so that's a challenge. That's a challenge, and we have some tools to help with that, or we couldn't do it. But so I think that's a struggle, but we're making progress.
I want to get into that a little bit. I want to hear about some of the tools you're using to kind of to do all of those things. So you talked about using AI and what that means, how they're supplementing some of the work that you do. And I use that word very specifically, supplementing some of the work you do. And some of the other tools you said for kind of pushing your PR machine. But you talked a lot just now about metrics and you watching your conversion rates and actually being able to track directly what you're doing, enrollment numbers from high schools directly into your schools and into some of your programs. So in general, with limited time and resources, what key metrics are you watching most closely, and how are you kind of evaluating?
Honestly, time and resources isn't nearly the issue it used to be in tracking, right? Most of the vendors I work with, most of the folks I've worked with, individual folks, they provide me dashboards and
Right.
other inside metrics. But I learned the OGSM model of planning from some friends at Procter and Gamble when I was at Chatfield College in Cincinnati. So I worked with a lot of those people. So I kind of learned what their strategies and how important the measures were.
Right.
So when we set up all our planning, the measures are just as important as the objective, right? Because you can't prove the objective without the measures. So for us, the main goals obviously are lead creation and then lead creation by funnel. So we track that. Then the second is applications, which every school in the country's applications accepts, um, and all the way down that funnel through registered. Now,
Mm-hmm.
on the marketing side, it's we use pixels in everything we do digitally.
Right.
So we know where our traffic's come from. Our analytics is set up so it coordinates in several different dashboards. And so I'm tracking what the click through rates are on the ads. I
Mm-hmm.
want to know who's clicking on it and why. more importantly, what's the bounce rate on that ad? So if
Right.
people are coming to us from a digital ad or streaming TV ad or something like that, I want to know if they're staying, and then I want to be able to map their journey once they're on our website.
Right.
So we have KPIs for all those, including our on-page conversion, which, because at one point it's the ad's responsibility, and then once it gets to your website, it's your website's responsibility and your team's responsibility to then convert them. So I want to map that journey, and we have pinpoints and goals for each different step of the way
Of
to kind
course.
of build our entire picture.
Of course. Okay, no, that's great. I'm cognizant of your time, so I do want to ask you some of the two big questions. So the first one is, and I love these because I feel like they really kind of wrap up everything we talked about. But when you think about the next 6 to 12 months, what's something you're hoping to build, to refine, or to see kind of real progress on, whether it's, in your team specifically or at kind of a broader institutional level?
I got two. We are in the process of building a new newsroom as a separate site to use for marketing.
Okay.
I've got I've made a lot of progress on there with I'll say me, one of my team members who does that, Trevor. He really focused. He's got the nuts and bolts of it put together, and I have some stuff I need to do from my side, and we want to generate a newsletter off that site. And we want to build backlinks, and we want to do all these different things for SEO. So there's a lot riding on that site. And the second project that I want to finish in the next 12 months is we have started to build a AI chatbot.
Oh, great.
And so I'm in the testing phase of the AI chatbot. Once again, both of those projects are very close to completion. So for me, they're big, and I want to get that finished. And those would be the two big projects I want to. It's pretty institutional, but that's where I want to go.
No, that's great. But I've had a lot of conversations with other institutions, and where like everybody's talking about how they map out the chat bot and how broad it reaches just little parts of little smaller faculties or across the university, and what that means for them. What are you looking to do? What's your objective with that? Is it student retention and helping them kind of figure out how, when they get to a site, how they find what it is that they need, navigational issues, for example, or support issues, for example? I don't know if you want to
Well,
share all that, but
no. Yeah, I can't get too proprietary, but
yeah.
um, this bot needs to assist in the helping prospects through the enrollment funnel.
Right. Okay.
That's number one. Our number one, but we have a two-sided website. It also needs to help people on the other side with
Yeah.
registration and how to do their student portal, and if their email doesn't work, what do they need to do? So there's like a mechanical help the current population side, but the there's no. It's a marketing tool for us. It's a marketing tool 100%
Right.
in
Right.
the front end of the website, and that's the goal for it.
That's excellent. So my last big question, and this for some reason this is a tough question every time I ask it for everyone, but if I gave you a magic wand and you could wave it around right now and solve one persistent Marcoms or leadership even challenge, no budget limits, no structural barriers, what would you fix first?
That's easy for me,
Oh,
honestly.
good.
It was having the staff and the resources to pull in the different content created throughout this campus and pump it out
Right.
to the appropriate platform. You have people that are creating, that are in journals and science experiments, and history's doing a dig, and all these different things that are going on. And we currently do not have a very good system of those. One being delivered to marketing, and two, processing the news, the events, the et cetera in there to then get them out to the public, because multiple times I'll find out about things that are old news by the time I know
Right.
about it. And it's like, like somebody wins an award, somebody does this. Um, that structure is not in the DNA of this place. When I first got here on the admission side, a culture of documentation wasn't here. That was like it
Right.
had to become part of our DNA. This content creation and sharing from a marketing perspective, because we can't afford to spend $1 billion on
Exactly. Right.
advertisement, but we do $1 billion worth of cool stuff that could
Right.
be picked up nationally. That's where we have to fill in that gap, and that's the one thing I would love, because that would help everything, marketing, enrollment. That would help us from top to bottom.
Course, of course. I would like to say that's not a challenge that you're the only person I've heard say that. That some of the universities I'm working with now, it's the same thing. Because they're so broad, there are silos, there are things happening, and it's difficult to build that process in necessarily to share that information in a timely manner, right? Because we know we work in a very kind of reactive industry. Um, John, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your experience, your perspective with us today. Is there anything else that we didn't get to touch on that you're dying to share with us before we wrap up?
No, I just appreciate this opportunity. I love what I do, and I love where I do it. And it's when I was in high school, I was for sure I was either going to be a rock star or play in the NFL. I mean that's those were my two goals, and I had no idea what a VP of marketing and enrollment was. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. I know
Like
exactly.
it's like I didn't even know this was a job or what it was, and so. But it's a great job. It's a great place to be and a great thing to do. And um, we just had graduation, and to see the fruits of our labor and what we
Is a
do.
big deal.
It's an amazing thing that we get to do.
That's why that's so true. But you're a rock star at what it is that you do. You're a rock star in a different way, John.
I'm
Thank
not sure
you.
about that, but it's still not quite what I'd imagined when I was 16, but still pretty cool.
It's still pretty cool. Well, it's been such a thoughtful and generous conversation. Thank you so much again, John. To our listeners or watchers, anybody who watches this, I hope this episode sparked ideas, affirmed your own experiences, or helped you see a challenge in a new light. If you're a communications or marketing leader in higher ed and you want to contribute to this evolving conversation, I'd love to hear from you because we know these conversations aren't just talk. They really are a start of ideally a shared roadmap for the future of our field. So let's get to work. Thanks so much again, John.
Thank you.